and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the World Soccer Report here on Single TV channels 249 and 250. Remember to go to the stores of iOS and Android to download the application of Single TV, where you can follow our programming from there. As well, remember that Single TV can also be found across Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all TVs 2016 and forward. With us today, I have my co-host, Mr. Frank Stanishi, Candid Frank, and our guest today is none other than midfielder extraordinaire from the Hamilton FC Forge, Sebastian Castello.
Hello, thank you guys for having me today.
So, Sebastian, basically here we like to have a conversation. We don't ask questions. We don't pressure anybody. We just like to have fun. Yeah. And from the flag that I see behind you, I see that you are a Barcelona fan.
So, to be honest, it's an interesting story. I grew up as a Barcelona fan all my youth. Messi was my favorite player, like most people around the world. But then at an age, I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago, I started supporting West Ham. So as of today, I would say I'm more of a West Ham supporter. So that Barca flag, I think, needs to be changed.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be too happy. And now, you are, from what I understand, from what I have learned about you, you are Hispanic, grew up in Mississauga. Where are your parents from?
Yeah, so my parents are immigrants from Mexico. So they are from a small, I would say small place called Veracruz on the Gulf of Mexico. They came here about, I'd say, 20 years ago, and I was born here in Mississauga. But I would say very often, couple times a year, maybe once, twice a year, I go down to Mexico. So Mexico is like my home too, right? So yeah.
So let's start with why you like the sport so much. Why did you want to become a soccer player?
It's an interesting question. From a young age, I love the sport, to be honest. I played other sports, karate, swimming, but it was something about the sport that attracted me, right? It was a passion I felt like no other one, even if it meant playing it or watching it on the television, right? The emotions that I would get from watching a game, from watching my team play, my country play. It was just emotions I hadn't felt before. And I feel like that sort of passion drove me towards wanting to become a professional soccer player. And also help from my parents. I feel like my parents were also a great, you could say, motivation to help me become what I am today and to become a passionate football fan and football player.
Frank?
So your parents are from Mexico. Soccer players are pretty good in Mexico. They've got a pretty good soccer team. You live in Canada. You just watched Canada, to extend, I guess, what you were talking about, your love of and passion of the game and watching it being played here. How impressed were you with the Canadian team and what they've accomplished this year?
Yeah, no, the Canadian men's national team is a interesting story, right? It was years of heartbreak, years of knowing that they weren't going to be successful, right? But in recent times, they've been able to develop really good young talent. And I think that's always been here in Canada, right? I don't think it's something that is unexpected, because there's good players around the country, right? But there was no system, right, to build on the Canadian youth, right? And now you can see, with everything happening, you've got star players in Europe, got star players in the MLS, but they're all young. That's the common thing that you see in this national team, and I think they'll only grow from now. I think they're doing very well. I think they're exceeding expectations, right? Finishing top of the World Cup qualifiers, beating the likes of Mexico, right? So I think the future is very bright, and Canadians should be really proud to call that their national team.
you've got a front row seat. My parents were born in Italy. They weren't born here.
Mm-hmm.
I was born here, and a lot of the culture that they have, I experienced firsthand. Right. So you almost, and this is a presumption on my part, so I apologize if I presume incorrectly.
Yeah.
You're born in the Canadian world, but you
Mm-hmm.
live in a Mexican heritage. If it's the same as when I grew up,
Yeah.
you know more about Mexico than you do about Canada almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that most of my childhood it was around Mexico, right? Mexican football, right? Because Canada didn't have a league back then. It was who do you support in the Mexican league, right? When I talked with my family, it was all about Mexican football, the Mexican national team, the Mexican players playing abroad, right, in Europe. How to get into that Mexican national team. It was always all towards that one direction, right? But I guess with the emergence of the quality of our Canadian national team, I guess you can say there's been a shift, right? Like when you put on that Canadian shirt now, they feel proud, right? Maybe 10 years ago, like the football culture wasn't here, right, in Canada. So maybe people with that dual citizenship would opt to go to a different country, right? Like for example, as you said, people would choose to go to Italy, right? 10 years ago, you wouldn't hear an Italian say they were cheering for Canada, right? But I feel like that's changed now, right? With how well they're doing. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a conversation to have, right? It's all Mexico now, but it was all Mexico before, but now there's a Canadian professional league. The quality is very high, so I think Canadian football is going in the right direction.
And
So
as a young player, you obviously understand the improvements of the game in Canada. So when and if there's an opportunity to represent Canada, how do you see that moment? How much hope do you hold in playing nationally for Canada?
Yeah, obviously it's a question to be had, right? As I told you before, Mexico was my dream, right? Playing for the national Mexican national team, but I feel like things have changed, right? With with the Canadian team becoming as good as they are right now. So yeah, I can't tell you right now if it's Mexico or Canada. It's like I hope one of them come around, but you never know. Sometimes that stuff doesn't come around. To pick from. If you have one that's special, right? And if you have to pick from two, that's unimaginable, right? So when the time comes, you'll know what I pick, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
so you are playing right now for Hamilton, a team that has exploded onto the soccer scene here in Canada. They have won CONCACAF. They have gone and won the CPL. They played in the US, in the US and in the USFL, US Football League,
Mhm.
and you had some experience, not playing directly in CONCACAF, but being there with your team.
Mhm.
How did that felt representing a Canadian team abroad?
Yeah, it's very special. Those type of games don't come around in your career very often, right? As you were mentioning, the Motagua game, it was I think the semifinal of the CONCACAF. I was on the bench, right? Even though I didn't get to play, it was an incredible experience, right? That type of fan base you don't get here in Canada yet, right? But in around the world, you can see the passion, what they live for. These type of fans, right? Those games on a Saturday, Sunday night is their life, is what they live for, right? So that sort of passion, it gives you goosebumps, right? You're on the opposite team, but you enjoy that's what makes you want to play better. The fans, even if it's abusing you, yelling you, right, that sort of stuff that motivates you to play better. So feel those experiences that have helped me, right? Because you can say it's a bit nerve-wracking going into those sort of environments, but being there at such a young age, I think it only helps you, right, to become a better person, to mature on the field, right? And yeah, hopefully there's more to come in the future.
So, in your young career with Hamilton, you had the the pleasure of scoring already once.
Mhm.
How did that first goal of your professional career uh, come about, and how did you feel
Yeah,
after that score?
yeah. Obviously, scoring your first professional goal is a dream. I think I'd only played maybe 2-3 games, 20 minutes before that. So it was something you don't think about. You only dream about, right? I think I came on late in the game, right? So I was happy as long as I was on the field. And then when that moment came about, it came very quick too off the bench. It, I, I was lost for words, emotions. I just took out my heart in the celebration, and yeah, can only thank my teammates, to be honest, because they put me in that position. Yeah, it was an incredible moment.
It's all a blur, huh?
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I only remember before the game and after the game. During the game, my head's all over the place.
But that'll change a little bit as you have more opportunity and more success.
Yeah.
Playing for Forge FC, people underestimate the opportunities for international play. You've highlighted a little bit of it for us. Eduardo's pointed out the fact that they've won CONCACAF. So there's been a lot of success for that level of soccer.
Yeah.
So you don't miss the opportunity to be involved internationally. And you talked about the incredible nature of the games that you've played in. How helpful is that in even if you're only sitting on the bench and watching? How helpful is it to be involved in those kinds of games with that kind of pressure and tension?
Yeah. It obviously helps. It helps you as a player, as a person, to be involved in those sort of matches, right? Because it's not just what happens on the field in those 90 minutes. It's what happens before, how you come to the game. You can feel that there's a sort of different environment, right? You could say nerves, chills, right? Because it's an important big match, right? The intensity of the warm up, it's different, right? What can I say? It's not one of those games you play every week, and it's things that don't come about often, right? So it gets you mentally matured because it's at the end of the day, 90 minutes decides who wins, if it's an important game, a trophy, right? Or who moves on to the next round. So you have to put it all out there, and at the end of the day, you want to win and you need to win, right? So yeah, it's very important for a young player's development to be involved in those type of games.
So you had the opportunity of playing in two of the most interesting games that I have seen Hamilton playing.
Mhm.
Uh, First of all, you played against Pacific
Mhm.
last year in the championship,
Mhm.
uh, it- uh, and it was a very exciting game. How did that feel? Because it was a packed stadium in Hamilton
Mhm.
watching that championship game.
Yeah, finals are, as I mentioned, they don't come about too often, so it's something you have to cherish. I thought the weather conditions weren't ideal. Obviously, I think it was hailing, it was windy, like it usually is in Hamilton. So it was going to be a difficult game, right? And finals, as we know, it's not the team that plays the best. It's the team that puts the ball in the back of the net, right? So it was an incredible experience. I feel like we should have got more from the game, obviously, right? But as you've seen with Forge, it's three finals in 3 years. So if we're on a right path, so I think this year we can be there again and experience that sort of environment again.
Well, the way you guys are playing, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Pacific started very strong, but all of a sudden they are coming down to reality
Mm-hmm.
that the other teams are warming up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but you had last Saturday, you guys had the championship game for 220. Although Hamilton wasn't successful,
Mm-hmm.
how did that championship feel? Canadian championship feel for you?
Yeah, so I was talking with some of my teammates, and they've said that apart from the first game ever in history, which was York against Forge, that the stadium's never been more packed, right? So from the get-go, you could feel the atmosphere, you could feel the crowd, right? That sort of crowd, I think it was maybe 10K, 10,000 people. So that sort of atmosphere helps you as a player, right? It pushes you. So you can, from the warm-ups, the intensity was there, the spirit, the energy, right? So the game was going to be a good one. You could tell, right? It was two teams that never played each other, but two teams from the GTA, right? So you could call it a little derby, right? TFC weren't playing their best football. We were starting to build up to what we could reach, our potential. So it was going to be an intriguing game. I think on the night, we probably deserved to win. We had, I'd say, way more chances than they did. And it came down to penalties, right? So penalties, as you know, is a lottery game. It's pick a number between 1 and 10, and the two teams don't know what number it is, right? So you can just be proud of the team, the effort they played, because they're an MLS team, right? So the MLS has been around for a long time, and the CPL's only been around for a couple of years. So for us to be able to match it, I think is incredible.
And you have another player from Mississauga that was playing in that game, in Jonathan Osorio.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a chance to talk with him about his progression from when he was playing at TFC2 and playing in a lower category of league and how he made it up?
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I haven't had the chance to talk to him personally. I know his story. I've been following TFC since it's been around, so I know where he's been. I think he's been down South America, right? Then he came back to play with TFC's academy. So I know the path he's been through. I think he's an inspiration, you can say, to many around this area, right? Because he's a local boy. He's played for his boyhood club, right? And I feel like you can't ask for more than that, right? He's become one of the star players at that TFC team. He's built his way from the bottom to the top, which is what everyone needs to, dedicate themselves towards, right? Because everyone starts from the same place when you go on the team, but you have to build yourself up to become the player you want to be. And I think Osorio's done that very well in his career.
One of the advantages he had is the fact that I should say one of the disadvantages that he had is there weren't that many great soccer places to play in Canada when he started his career. Mm-hmm. You have a better opportunity to locally improve a lot better than a lot of local players did years ago. Can you feel the difference in the popularity of the game and the popularity of players playing?
Yeah, I feel that that the game is growing in Canada. I think a large part of that has to do with the national team, obviously, how they're doing well, how they qualify to a World Cup. But I also think a big part has to do with the growth of our league, right? The Canadian Premier League. Players, like you said, Osorio didn't have it easy, right? That's why maybe he went down south, right, to prove himself. Because if you weren't on a professional academy, was TFC, Montreal, or Vancouver, then it was very hard to make it, right, here in Canada. So I feel like those players have helped pave a way for the younger generation, right? Because they voiced their concerns. They had nowhere else to go, right? So then the Canadian soccer listened, and they started to start planning a league where youth players can develop. Because if you see around the league in the CPL, there's a lot of young players, right? A lot of good young talent. So I think that'll help, and that is currently also helping.
So this Sunday, you face. It's going to be the rivalry of Pacific against Hamilton Forge again. Mm-hmm. And we want to wish you a lot of luck, because this is the championship from last year.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys are still heartbroken with that loss that was so hard to take. Mm-hmm. How do you see that game? And this will be our last question, because I know that you have to go get ready for practices.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a good game, right? They're top of the table. We're I believe fourth, right? So it's, apart from what happened last year, right? You have to see what it is for this year, right? They're top of the table, so that's what we're trying to achieve this year. So if we want to do that, if we want to achieve our goals, we have to be the best of the teams, and we have to beat whoever's above us, right? So I feel like it's going to be a good game. They started the season very well. I think they've declined a bit, but you can't take anything away from that. They were at top of the table for a reason, right? So I think we're prepared. I think these last couple of weeks have helped us. The TFC game, even though we didn't win, I think it's helped us a lot. Goes to show that our team is there to win, to compete, and to win every championship possible. So yeah, I think it's going to be an intriguing match.
So with this, Sebastian, I would like to thank you very much for being on our show. We'll look forward to having you again, and this time saying, "I am a champion and I scored a winning goal." And
yeah.
I just want to remind all our audience, all our viewers, that this show can be heard as well on the Spanglish Radio Network and its affiliates on social media. Remember to go to our website, SpanglishSportsWorld.com, for all the news and programming. Remember, Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, but especially live it, because sport is Spanglish Sport World, and Spanglish Sport World is sport. In name of Candid Frank Stanishi and our guest, Sebastian Castello, we bid you a great weekend, and go to Hamilton. Watch the game. It's going to be a good one.
Good luck, Sebastian.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.